Caroline, Chair.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Southern Planning Committee. We are now live and online. Housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire drill today, but if there is one, please make your way out of the building to the front of the building. This meeting is live, as I said, so please, folks with laptops and mobile phones, you just have them on silent. Thank you very much. And to ensure that those people, our fans watching on the live screen, know who we are, could you introduce yourself before speaking, unless I have introduced you? So I'll now ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves, beginning to my right.
Idris Iqbal, Solicitor. Tim Ward, Committee Officer.
Sam Wormsley, Councillor for Clun.
George Holyhead, Councillor for Brownlee.
Elizabeth Barker, Councillor for Shipnell Rural.
Beverly Wade, Councillor for Ludlow East. Caroline Bagnall, Councillor for Broseley.
Ed Potter, Councillor for Lowton and subbing for Councillor Nigel Lumby.
Councillor Colin Taylor for Bridgenorth South and Alverley.
Councillor Rachel Conley, Councillor for Bridgenorth West and Tassley.
Lynn Parker, Principal Planning Officer. Jenny Powell, Senior Planning Officer.
Sarah Robinson, Senior Planning Officer.
Nick Hignett, Councillor for Ray Valley.
Charlotte Morrison, Planning and Development Services Manager.
Andy Boddington, Councillor for Ludlow North. Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We've had apologies from Nigel Lumby and Councillor Potter substituting for him.
Thank you very much. Now, the committee will have read the minutes for the last meeting on the 21st of July. Are there any comments or corrections to those minutes? Can someone then propose that we accept them? No. Councillor Hignett, somebody second that? Thank you. And then we could go on to public questions.
We go public questions, Chair.
Disclosable pecuniary and other interests. Councillor.
Chair, Councillor Hignett. Item 6 on the agenda, Springley. I have a pecuniary interest, so I will leave the meeting before that agenda item starts.
Thank you. Okay, then we go on to the agenda, and the first one, item number 5, is the development at Oldbury Road, Bridgenorth, or development in Oldbury. So, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Sarah Robinson, the Senior Planning Officer dealing with this application. Here we've got is the proposed block plan to demonstrate the proposed layout, which includes a proposed access onto the public right of way. I show this proposed footpath to access onto the existing public right of way to the north of the site. Otherwise, yeah, it's just demonstrating the site layout. It's approximately 0.5 kilometres to the school via the public right of way, and approximately 1.1 kilometre to the nearest shop via the footpath to the south east. Here are the proposed elevational plans for the dwellings on site. Here are the proposed single and double bay garages. Here is the proposed access location for the site. And here is a view looking northwest from the site access. This looking southwest from northeast of the site. and from approximately the same location, looking southeast. And there have been a number of updates following the issuing of the committee report. Amended plans have been provided and accepted, and confirmed these plans have been included within this presentation. And in line with the amended plans, reason for refusal number 3 has been amended to omit reference to the siting of solar panels and inadequate bedroom sizes for certain property types. The agent had also requested a change to the description of the development. However, this would fundamentally change the description of development and require reconsultation, and was considered too late in the process. So it's required reconsultation. The proposal does not comply with the cross-subsidy policy and was outlined to the agent as part of the pre-application process. It's also noted that the load density it's considered that the low density of the proposed housing would not result in efficient use of land. However, if the density would be increased, this would unacceptably impact on the conservation area and its setting. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Sarah? No questions. Then, in fact, we only have one speaker on this application, and that's Mr. Martin Parish, the agent.
Chair, members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of this application. We have reviewed the officer's report and the officer's 5 reasons for refusal. We have circulated to all the committee members our response to that in order for you to have some prior information before the officers presenting a précis to committee. The cross-subsidy title of the description has seemed to cause some confusion with the officers. We did request that the scheme description be changed because the officer disputed the validity of the title. However, the scheme, regardless of its title, remains a cross-subsidy proposal with open market and affordable housing. We believe the scheme is locationally sustainable, and the Highways Consultee also has stated that. That is noted in our Appendix A, which we distributed to committee. And Appendix B is the MPPF, which confirms that sustainable transport solutions will vary between urban and rural areas, and this should be taken into account in both plan making and decision taking. We note the conservation has stated that the harm or perceived harm to the conservation area is that it's at the lower end of less than substantial harm. This has got to be balanced against the public benefits, which we did set out in our Appendix C, which we have sent to the officer, and I noticed this hasn't been reported in the report. The scheme will provide affordable housing, open market housing, BNG, encouraging wildlife, open space, and an adopted road connecting to with a footpath connecting to the sustainable link to the schools. We have sensibly designed the scheme to reflect the rural aspect of the adjacent conservation area. We do consider that the proposal is best use of land. Again, it was designed to reflect its rural setting and not to emulate an urban housing estate. The cross-subsidy scheme is a proven method of allowing local people to get onto the property ladder and is in accordance with Shropshire Council's local needs and cascade criteria. Previously, the committee approved a cross-subsidy scheme in Crupton, which was the first scheme in Shropshire to offer affordable housing to buy, secured in perpetuity by Section 106.
15 seconds, Mr.
This scheme has been totally successful. Councillor Evans, who is in attendance today, has kindly offered to answer any questions that you may have about the Crupton scheme, as it is in his ward. This may help to clarify the benefits of this type of scheme. I'm also available to answer any questions, and I'll invite you to ask Councillor Evans to speak. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Parish? No, thank you very much. Right. Then we get over to comments from the committee. Who's going to start the ball rolling?
Yeah. I note the comments just made by the speaker about the conservation area and it being the harm being to the lower end of less than substantial, which is quite clearly a low point. Although I understand the landmark oak tree has been mentioned, and I would be concerned if tree officers were expressing concern about the risk to that. If it's a landmark oak tree, to my mind, it's of significant value to the area, and so I think would need to be doubly considered to see if there's any harm going to be carried out to that. My main concern with this scheme is that Oldbury is not a sustainable location, and this site is regarded as open countryside, and therefore it wouldn't be compliant with policy CS5 of the core strategy and policy MD7A of the SAMDEV plan. I do acknowledge that similar schemes have been approved in open countryside, and I know the cross-subsidy scheme in Crupton has been mentioned, which I am fully aware of that approval. To my mind, each member of this committee needs to look at the application in front of them and consider it based on the information relevant. And I don't think there is a direct correlation between the Crupton's cross-subsidy scheme and this scheme, because they are slightly different areas, maybe on a slightly better improved bus route on the Crupton Road and various other considerations. 6.7.3 on the report states that the target rate for affordable housing would be 2 dwellings. And then it states that the 4 affordable dwellings proposed is a slight over provision against the prevailing rate. Going from 2 to 4 is doubling, so I think it's slightly more than a slight over provision, but I'll accept that. In my opinion, the planning system objectives, which are social, economic and environmental, are 3 things that we need to consider on making a decision on this. From a social point of view, I feel that this application fails due to its location and the very poor access to services and local amenities. On an economic point of view, I think it does contribute to the local economy, particularly during the building phase, and obviously to a lesser extent afterwards. My issue is with the environmental side of things. I think the site is far too large for the number of dwellings proposed. I don't think it's well designed. It is partially within a conservation area, and it would definitely cause harm to the visual setting. Site visit this morning I went on definitely showed this to be a wildlife corridor at present, and I'm concerned that we would be removing that wildlife corridor. There's a small section of land further down towards Bridgenorth, which is not a wildlife corridor because it's much more open, but I do feel that the wildlife corridor, as I see it, would be damaged by this application. I think the footway access that's mentioned, which is slightly further down the highway, we did go down and have a look at it on the site access this morning. I don't feel it's a very suitable footway access, particularly for young children. I walked a small section of that footpath down. It goes down and then turns left, and there's a steep slope on the right-hand side. I wouldn't trust any young children of mine to go there on their own, particularly in the dark. Street lights on the road, but there was no lighting on that path. So I don't feel that that's suitable. So on balance of those 3 planning system objectives, at the moment, I don't feel I can support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thank you, Chairman. I'll try not to repeat what Councillor Hignett has said. I do in the main support him. It's one that we've got to take on balance. Certainly as far as the affordable housing criteria is concerned, we're a bit between a rock and a hard place. We obviously want as many as we can get, but we've got to be mindful how and where we put them. And to my mind, this site is not the place for it. There's just a few too many things going against it that, in my mind, Chairman, in addition to what Councillor Hignett has said, there's going to be significant hedgerow loss to give us access and exit to this site. And that will materially alter the appearance, the whole appearance of going up into the village of Oldbury. The site as it sits is a natural, to my mind, a natural boundary between Oldbury. Okay, I know you've then got the bypass and then you go on down into Bridgenorth, but it's giving that separation from the town and giving Oldbury a separate sense of identity. So I can understand objections from that point of view. Chairman, I cannot support this application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
Thank you, Chair. I echo much of what my fellow councillors have said, although I do think, looking at the plan, we so often are presented with applications for housing schemes where every available piece of land has a house sort of squeezed onto it, and it's quite refreshing to see a scheme where the houses are reasonably well spaced out, and to my mind that would give the occupants more of an impression of living in the countryside, which is you know, something to be applauded, I would have said. However, my concerns about this particular application are one, about the access to local amenities and the distance that residents would have to walk to reach them, whether that's school or shops. I agree that the footpath goes through a very dark sort of tunnel of trees and so on, which wouldn't be particularly pleasant, I think, on winter evenings and early mornings. My other concern is the speed of traffic seemed to be quite high, and although there's a 30-mile-an-hour limit, it seems to me that vehicles were travelling probably in excess of that, and vehicles emerging from the site onto that main road might be at risk, I think. I just think this is not the place for a settlement such as this. And the thought of every journey having to be taken by car is, you know, it doesn't sit well with me. So I'm minded to vote against this. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll comment myself. I echo the comments made by the previous speakers, that this really isn't the right place for a settlement, despite the benefits of affordable housing, despite the fact there are some good points about the design. I am concerned about the loss of the wildlife corridor, actually along the road itself, and even though some of it, sorry. My apologies. I'm concerned about the wildlife corridor along the road, and even though it's not all in good condition, that doesn't mean it's not supporting wildlife. The good thing about wildlife is that it doesn't actually mind whether it's an exhibition tree or, you know, a rather scraggly tree. It's just where wildlife and biodiversity lives. And these are particularly important. And as we talk nationally about and locally about a natural recovery strategy, this concerns me. The development acts to bring Oldbury towards Bridgnorth. That gap is quite important for the setting of Oldbury. It makes it a distinctive village. It doesn't join up. And Bridgnorth is a walkable town. Okay, it's a bit in parts, but you can more or less walk from one end to the other in reasonable comfort. And this is outside the walkable zone. And I would not feel comfortable. I wasn't comfortable, frankly, walking down the road in daylight in places because of the narrowness of the path, let alone doing that in darkness. I don't think it's a sustainable place for a development. I am concerned about the impact on the conservation area. I take a view that it's less than substantial. I'm not so convinced it's at the lower end, so disagreeing with conservation advice here. We don't have anybody from conservation here to counter that, but it is important. I mean, the legislation is very important. Legal decisions back in 2014 made it absolutely clear that the setting of conservation areas has to be protected, along with the conservation areas themselves. Before 2014, there tended to be the view that, well, it's a listed building, it's a conservation area that's protected, and court judgments made it very clear, both listed buildings and conservation areas, that even when it's less than substantial harm, we have a duty to actually protect that conservation area. So there are negative things. I mean, we have to recognise we don't have a 5-year land supply. And that means we have the thing called the tilted balance, which basically means we sort of lean towards approval. But it doesn't mean it's automatic to approve. And I don't think this scheme is the right scheme. And despite not having a 5-year land supply, I would not like to support it. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, just in response, I live in Bridgnorth. I represent one of the areas, and the actual town of Bridgnorth itself is pretty full. We're going to see more applications of these kinds on the outskirts of a lot of our towns that you could argue are not walkable, and public transport is, intermittent at best. I was very pleased to see the plans for affordable properties. However, I still feel even with that pull, it is not in the right place and is not sustainable. So I am minded not to support this.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no more, can somebody make a proposal? Yeah.
I'm happy to, in line with the officer's recommendation, refusal. For me, it doesn't comply with policy. There's a lot stacked against it from a policy point of view, so I'm happy to move that recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. And Beverley is, Councillor Waite is seconding it. We take the vote.
Thank you, Chair. We have a proposal which has been seconded to refuse planning permission in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Please, can you confirm whether you're for or against the proposal? Caroline Bagnall?
For.
Elizabeth Barker?
For.
Rachel Connolly?
For.
Nick Hignett,
4.
George Holyhead,
4.
Ed Potter,
4.
Colin Taylor,
4.
Beverly Waite,
4.
Sam Walmsley,
4.
Andy Boddington.
4.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much, committee. And thank you, Mr. Parish, for coming to speak to us. No. Okay, then we move to the next item of the agenda, which is Springley at Lee Cross.
Thanks, Chair. This is a proposal to site 40 additional caravans at the existing Springley Caravan and Fishery. It also includes the creation of a new access road, repositioning of an amenity block which already benefits from planning permission, and a new parking area associated with that. I'll just run through the plans. So the areas we are looking at are the 2 areas outlined in red. The blue line is the remaining ownership of the site, with the existing development in between the 2 red areas. This gives a bit more of a view of the proposal. You can see the caravans being located to the southeast, the new access road to the northwest. These are the elevations for the amenity block. That's the ground floor floor plan. That's the first floor manager's accommodation floor plan. These are the highways plans. That's the landscaping plan to the northern part of the site with the attenuation pond and landscaping. This is for the southeastern part of the site. And these are the drainage plans. And here are some site views. Apologies for the quality of the first image. These are views across from the dwellings at the junction with the A488 and Plealey Lane. This is the area where the caravans would be sited. The lower picture is where access would go through the hedge to the new area of caravans. And this is the existing site access, which is proposed to be blocked up under the proposals so that no traffic related to the site will go down this lane. It's another view of it. And this is a view to the southeast of the site, beyond the site extent towards Plealey Village, looking back across. It's not the actual field where the caravans will be sited, but you can see that no caravans are visible in that viewpoint. And the land actually falls beneath that is blocked. That's it for me.
Okay, and our first speaker on this is Councillor Alan Hodges from Ponsonbury Parish Council.
Before I come, Chair, I'm Alan Hodges. I understand the procedure. I've been before this committee on several occasions. I've watched the photographs, which are fine. However, in the interest of balance and fairness, online submitted were some group of photographs by the local resident, which very tellingly provided comments by showing the development of
Mr. Hodges, you're actually getting into what you perhaps should be saying into the microphone. And if you could come forward and turn on the microphone. Okay, well.
At the heart of the National Planning Policy Framework is the requirement to make developments visually attractive, and that poorly designed developments should be refused. Comprising 70% that the area extension will affect, equivalent, would you believe, to 8 Wembley-sized football pitches, and a 60% increase on the number of units already approved to 135, it is an unacceptable scale, especially in relation to the small neighbouring settlement. It is too intrusive. A minor eyesore becomes a major one. The high-density layout resembling sardines squashed into a tin is not beautiful, as the NPP expects, especially in the setting of an area of outstanding natural beauty. The NPPF stresses the importance of maintaining local character and a strong sense of place, and encourages neighbourhood plans to identify this. Ponsbury Neighbourhood Plan identifies these local landscape character features. 1. Small scale is the extension. Certainly not. It will equal 8 football pitches. 2. Mainly unplanned appearance. No. This contrasts with the extension, straight lines and planned appearance. Understated, the site already has too many large signs, an urban feature. Unobtrusive, no. Existing screening fails in winter, as Mr. Benson's photo showed. The new entrance and large relocated reception area will make the whole development much more visually intrusive to the A488 users and to the many walkers. Unspoilt? No. By spreading 1 to 3 fields, extension will put a large dent in the traditional open field pattern, detracting from the prevailing view of hills. Tranquil? No. Extra car movements alone will reduce this. The above contradicts the mere assertion of the officer that local character will not be significantly harmed. Local residents have made it clear that their amenity and safety will be harmed, not improved, by the application. The likely impact of this on what appeals to many visitors, peaceful, attractive countryside, is contrary to much of CS16.
15 seconds.
Poor design, failing to safeguard local character for future generations, harm to residents' amenity, all outweigh uncertain economic gains, and therefore it is an unsustainable development, simply a big step, wrong place, too far.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Are there any questions for Mr. Hodges? Thank you very much. Our second speaker is the local member, Councillor Roger Evans.
Chairman, Springley caravan site dates back some time. It fell into disrepair, was bought and then regenerated into what it is today when you saw the site visit, which I was not invited to. A quiet, tranquil park in a quiet rural part of Shropshire, and which is a credit to the new owner. The application before you is in 2 parts: the new access and the extra 40 static holiday homes. First, the new access. At present, it is approached via a narrow lane on which are parked a number of vehicles and is often only 1 car width wide. Access off the main A488 is not good. To pull out onto the main road is not good. It is often traversed by vehicles travelling at or above the national limit of 60 miles an hour. There have been a number of accidents at this junction. A request for a speed limit had been made and was made as part of the planning application in place, where put 39 new static holiday homes in 2021. No notice or action has been taken with regard to this and is not mentioned in this report. The parish council, local residents and the adopted neighbourhood plan have all asked for a lower speed limit to be put in place. The new access, if agreed, will need to ensure display and sightlines are adequate to enable slow-moving caravans and strangers to the site to both enter and leave the holiday park. Design will be crucial. Also to be noted are the points and conditions raised in 641, 642, and in the Highways report on page 29 of today's report, that the new proposed access will need to be separately discussed with them and in fact may not in fact be agreed. I also note on page 42, as a condition of this application, no part of the development shall start until a new access from the A488 is constructed in use, which of course may not be agreed on the highways. Next, the extension to the number of static caravans on the site. The park is part of rural Shropshire. The emphasis here is rural. The attractiveness is its character, landscape and openness. The area of the extension is a raised area, which is not shown in the photographs that were displayed a short time ago, and very visual from a number of places, again, not shown in the pictures you've just seen. If agreed, then the site will need to be extensively landscaped to reduce the visual impact of the proposed extension, which in effect will double its size. I am surprised that no landscape visual appraisal was asked for and agreed prior to any application being supported. I note the report of a previous officer in 2001 was considered then, and if this application is supported, then really a mature, I repeat, a mature landscaping plan must be agreed and put in place before the first static caravan is occupied. In view of many, the proposal is overdevelopment of a rural holiday park, one that has no easy access to any local facilities, has no footpaths adjoining it. It is in a quiet rural area of the county, an area of openness and much valued by everyone, including many local residents. I see I'm running out of time, so I will try and speed up. I would argue it is contrary to point 613 in this report. A 40 static caravan extension, doubling the size, is not a small scale development considering the local area. It is not appropriate in scale or density, so is contrary to CS6. I, as local member and many residents do not agree, support the comments contained in 623. It is overdevelopment, is not supported by various policies as is argued in the report. I note the points made in point 634, the Pontefract Neighbourhood Plan. The proposal is contrary to LAN 5. Again, it is considered that the points raised in 637 is not supported as this site is on raised ground and it will be prominent. It is surprising to note the point raised in 643.
Thank you, Roger.
Chairman.
Well timed. Okay, any questions for Councillor Evans? No, thank you, Roger. No, Councillor Evans. Right. Then we have one more speaker, which is Mr. Stuart Thomas, the agent.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to address you today. This is an application to extend an existing high-quality caravan and leisure park in the heart of Shropshire. The site is owned and run by Salop Leisure, who purchased the site in 2021. At the time, as you heard from Councillor Evans, the existing enterprise was very tired. It was in need of some significant investment. And what you saw on the site visit today was the culmination of 5 hard years of work to turn this into one of the most premier sites in the region. The site employs a number of local people, and it's a really popular fishing destination with some beautifully landscaped fishing pools, together with a holiday destination that brings people into the local area from far and wide. Those people spend their money in the local pubs, the local shops, and the local village and the local facilities in the surrounding villages, helping to sustain the rural economy and jobs in the area. The proposed new access has the support of the Highway Authority, and it will be a significant improvement to the existing and will ensure that traffic safely accesses the A4888, as well as moving the access away from the front of the existing residence, as the existing access to the park will be closed off as a condition of any application that's granted approval. There will be substantial landscaping along the site access, together with matte black railings, creating an attractive site entrance, together with the amenity block, which already has approval to be built elsewhere on the site. The additional caravans were contained within the existing field, which forms a natural extension to the site. The field benefits from a number of mature trees, which will help, together with substantial new mature planting, as requested by Councillor Evans, and 2 new drainage ponds. Attention to detail and creating beautifully landscaped parks are what Salop Leisure do, and this site will be no different. We have respect for Ponsonby Parish Council's views, but would disagree strongly with the sentiment that's been expressed. We do not believe that this is overdevelopment, and we do not believe it would urbanise the landscape. Instead, we believe the site has helped and will enhance the area. It is worth noting that in the questionnaire of residents which led to the Ponsonby Neighbourhood Plan being adopted, 54% of people wish to encourage more tourism to the area, and the policies in the plans all support tourism and economic developments of this scale in the rural area. In our opinion, this application is not contrary to the neighbourhood plan. It is a matter of judgment, and we respect the Parish Council's judgment. We would strongly disagree. To conclude, we believe this is a policy compliant scheme, as summarised and set out in your officer report. There will be strong economic, social and environmental benefits arising from the development, which would outweigh any concerns. Accordingly, we would respectfully ask the committee support this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any questions from Mr. Thomas? Yes, please.
Hello, Councillor Hollyhead. Yeah. I'd just like to ask about the objection raised by the Coal Authority. Obviously, they've put that the amenity building you want to move falls in a development high risk area for historic coal mining. Because of that, you had to provide a risk assessment. And having received that risk assessment, the Coal Authority maintained a substantive concern. And they said that the data was lacking sufficient site-specific ground investigation to justify the proposed foundation solution. Now, they've recommended that there needs to be through borehole drilling to 30 metres of depth to confirm the ground conditions and to determine if grouting is needed, etc., etc. I was just wondering, have you actually, in order for this to take place, you're required to get prior written permission from the Coal Authority themselves. I'm just wondering, has that been done? And are you willing to carry out those tests? And why weren't they done previously, as this is a sort of key element of your plan?
Through you, Chairman. So we fully understand and respect the comments, obviously, that have been made by the Coal Authority. All of the matters that essentially have been raised would either be picked up by planning conditions, which I think are within the officer report, but also by the building regulations process. So clearly there would be a subsequent approval to go through if this application would be approved via building regs and the conditions. And to put it quite simply, if the Coal Authority aren't happy with that, then we'll have to have a rethink with the amenity building. We would be confident, though, that from the work that we've done so far and our engagement with the Coal Authority, that those matters can be addressed. But clearly, we would like the comfort and assurance that a planning approval is in place before the client then spends probably a fair bit of time and money to satisfy anything that's necessary via planning conditions or building regulations. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Wade.
One of the requests from Ponsonby Parish Council was that all the static caravans are going to be owner occupied. That's in the report. Is that the case with the ones that are already there now? Are they owner occupied or are some for hire?
May I just double check that, if I may, with my client, because I don't actually know what the current occupancy is, please. If I may. It's owner occupied. Yeah, sorry to clarify, as planning permission for hire fleet 18 on the first phase. That's currently on site, so they're not currently all owner occupied as it stands.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Questions? No, thank you very much. Right. We're now over to the committee for discussion. Councillor Potter.
Thank you very much. I know this site and the area well, and there's been vast improvements there in recent years. I'm very pleased to see a new access because I think the Plealey Road, particularly opposite the cottages on the one side, is very narrow. It doesn't lend itself to the sort of commercial nature of the area, so I think the access would be a great improvement to the site. I hear what local member and parish council say about urbanisation, but it doesn't quite sit with me in terms of caravans. I don't think of caravans and sort of leisure facilities like this as being an urban sort of phenomenon. It's very much more of a rural setting. You know, you cross the border into mid Wales, and you know there's lots of sites like this, and it's very much a rural. It's a rural field rather than an urban, but I sort of see what they're saying. For me, I'm minded to accept the officer's recommendation for approval because I think it's good for the local economy. It provides local jobs. It looks very well designed. I'm pleased to hear some reassurances around landscaping and looking at other sites from the applicant. Their landscaping is pretty good, and it's finished to a very high standard. So at present, I'm very much minded to support this application.
Any others want to speak? Yes, Councillor Watson.
And this is a question for our planning officers. So we've just heard about the benefits of a new road access, and Councillor Evans talked about the comments from our highways team on needing to agree the arrangement for the new access. Would the planning permission, if granted, be worded in such a way that if the highways team couldn't find a successful and acceptable solution for the new entrance, that no additional caravans would be built?
The condition that's proposed is that no part of the development approved should come into use until the new access has been constructed. That necessarily requires highways to go through its legislative process to ensure that works can be undertaken to the public highway. So that's outside of my control and would require further road safety audit work between the applicant and the highways team, which is subject to a section 278 agreement.
Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Chairman. It's just a question of clarification. Caravan parks, park home sites are the bane of my life. I have 3 in my ward. Went under the old ward boundaries. I had 4. The problem I have, and I'd like some reassurance from the officers, if I can, please, that these are holiday lets, weekenders, and so on. Where is the line drawn when you get people in them permanently and suddenly they're permanent residential, whether it's 1 or just 2 of them or what have you? I want some reassurance before I will be totally in support of this scheme that cannot happen and will not happen. Because I've got the problem in my ward and I would hate to see it, and this is a far bigger one than I've got in my ward, but it happens, it creates mayhem.
Yeah, this is covered under condition 13, which is a lifetime condition for the development, which states that the caravans must be occupied for holiday purposes only and must not be occupied as a person's sole or main place of residence.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I just ask how that is monitored then? How do you make sure that somebody isn't living there all the time? Thank you.
That's going to be subject to the enforcement team. So any occupancy not in accordance with the conditions need to be reported to us, and then enforcement officers would investigate and, if necessary, issue notices. but that's under that separate process.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, Joe. This is a challenging one to decide, particularly given the degree of local opposition. And the parish council and the local member are strongly against, rather than weakly against. However, there is a clear economic benefit, and there is the gain of a new entrance to the site. The current one is really unsuitable, even for the number of caravans and tent pitches that are there at the moment. And so there is a betterment there, as has been clearly explained by officers, that if a Section 278 agreement cannot be agreed that allows access onto the highway safely, then this proposal is basically dead in the water. And a new application would have to come back with some other form of access if that could be done. And I'm not taking the view on that. So that needs to be looked after. Councillor Evans mentioned the speed of the road. I think I've thought this road should be slowed down ever since I first started coming to Shropshire decades ago. It's always been too fast for the quality of road, and in other counties it would have been slowed down. Now I'm not surprised if this hasn't happened. It's down to highways whether they can negotiate any reduction in traffic speed. I would certainly like to see that. If this goes ahead, I think that is desirable, and that benefits everywhere along that road and everyone along the road. Because even when I was driving, that I didn't feel it was that safe a road when people were hounding along at quite astonishing speeds at times. So that would need to be solved. We've heard about the Coal Authority and that objection, and that would require a different application to come in to move the utility block if needed, if it can't go there. So that's a risk the developer takes on, and whether both risks the developer takes on and will be negotiated in the coming months if this is approved. So am I in favour of it? Yes, I think I am. I don't think I love it, but I can't really see the reasons for turning it down, given the benefits of new access and the benefits of bringing extra tourists into the area, which is a vital part of our economy. So I'm minded to actually go with this. Any further comments? Yes.
Yeah, having said on the last application that it was refreshing to see a development being proposed where the houses were spaced out. Here we have a development where the static caravans are going to be very, very close together. I have to say I was impressed on our site visits by the standard of care that was obviously being given to the landscape, and it really did look a very well looked after site. But I am a bit concerned because I did at the time of the site visit feel that the caravans seem to be very close together, and these proposed caravans seem even closer together from looking at the plan. So it's going to be very high density, and whilst I can see that the new access is a very good thing and it will take vehicles away from the houses on the existing access road, I'm just concerned about the density. I have no doubt that everything will be done to make it look wonderful and to enhance the experience of the people who are staying there. But I just feel that I would feel more comfortable if it were a little bit less densely populated.
Further comments? Then does someone have a proposal? I was looking at you, Councillor Potter.
I'm happy to propose supporting this application, subject to conditions as outlined, delegated to officers.
Okay, and I will second that.
We understand across the conditions. I think there was some extra condition proposed. I think I was trying to get TRO, was it, Sean?
Just as a result of that, just the clarity, Councillor, sorry, I wasn't sure whether what you were moving was the conditions as listed on the committee report, or whether there were extra conditions that you wanted to put on.
For me, the conditions as per the report.
Thank you.
I might have missed if someone has suggested another condition somewhere.
Is there somewhere we could look at something about getting something worked done on the speed that Councillor Evans mentioned? You know, I know it might be a different department, but I do think it's quite important.
I quite agree it's important. Whether we can get conditioning this, looking at planning officers.
Section 106.
It would have to be through a Section 106 legal agreement to to agree on the speed limit, but it would have to be proposed as part of the application through the application. Sorry, a new speed limit would have to be proposed through the application process, and then we would have to agree that legally through a Section 106 agreement, which would delay the decision until that agreement can be completed.
Okay, so the question is, do we have a condition for a Section 106 agreement about the speed limit? And can I just look at Mr. Parish? Oh, sorry, the wrong one. Sorry, I know I'd get that wrong. Mr. Thomas. Yeah.
Obviously needs to be a separate highways approval process for the access itself via Section 278 agreement, and it's usually by that process that we could absolutely look at the consideration of speed limits, and if the highways felt it would be appropriate, then it would come via the safety audit process for the access. So I don't think it needs a separate legal agreement, because it would be picked up separately by the 278 highways approval for the access. And I think, as someone said, I think from my client's perspective, if that needs to be looked at, absolutely, we will help look at that via the safety audit of the 278.
Councillor Potter?
Yeah, I was thinking that a Section 106 might be quite time consuming, delaying, and complicated, and it might not even meet with approval by various consultees. You know, trying to get speed limits changed on roads, it's not an easy job. You know, police and bits we have to be involved. To me, it doesn't seem the right. Section 106 doesn't seem the right way to do that. But if someone wants, my proposal is as per the recommendations. But if someone wants to amend that, then I'll happily accept it.
I take the view that adding an S106 this late in the process, after there have been extensive discussions on this scheme and consultation on this scheme, I don't think that would be appropriate, and I don't think we can do that. So if we approve this, then the way forward is through Section 278 And that's the way forward to get the road. But I think you hear the message very clearly, that we are concerned about the road speeds, and I'm sure planning officers will take that back to highways.
Can I just comment, Chair, that the condition relating to the requirement for extra highways information would lead into the process described by Mr. Thomas, and I agree with you that that's a better way to do it than through the Section 106 process. The Section 106 process is really if a speed limit is proposed as part of the application, and we would secure it in that way. But this is a better way of doing it through the condition.
Okay. Thank you. So if there's no other comments, I'm minded to proceed to a vote. Yes, me.
Thank you, Chair. We have a proposal which has been seconded to grant planning permission in accordance with officer recommendation. Please can confirm whether you're voting for, against, or abstaining. Caroline Bagnall.
Abstain.
Elizabeth Barker.
Against.
Rachel Connolly.
For.
George Holyhead.
Against, citing the impact on locals and the existing landscape.
Ed Potter. For. Colin Taylor.
For.
Beverly Waite.
For.
Sam Walmsley.
For.
Andy Boddington.
For.
6 for, 2 against, 1 abstention.
So that's 6 for, 2 against, 1 abstention. Thank you very much, committee. Now we move on to the next agenda item, which is appeals. This is just a note, and there's nothing substantial in there in appeals this time round. But I would, if you haven't read them, I'd urge you to read them. Because appeals are a good way about, yes, this room and its creaking. It's impossible to avoid creaking. Right. After that entertaining episode, it's useful to read the appeals because it's a really good way of learning about the planning system. And as I think everybody knows, whether they've been on planning committee for a long time or a very short time, that everybody knows it takes a bit of time to get your head around it, and all the different rules and regulations and approaches. So I'd recommend that. Other than that, we have the date of the next meeting, which is the 23rd of September, Tuesday 23rd of September at 2 p.m. in this building. I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you. Thank you everybody for that. Just wait for off there.